Welcome back to another podcast of Heal Without Harm. My name is Dr. Clayton Dir, and I'm the physical therapist bringing you the truth on the medical system. Today is going to be a little bit of a rapid fire, going over different myths that I run into every day, whether it be on social media, with my clients, with family members, with friends, whatever it may be. I'm going to do my best to remember as many as I can and then talk about each one. One of the first ones is running is bad for your knees. That is false. We will talk about it. Everybody has disc degeneration. Even people in their 20s, there's a 37% chance that you have some sort of disc degeneration, even though you have zero symptoms. So going back to the correlation, almost not even there. So why can we even attempt causation? Another one is your knees cannot pass your toes ever. Also a myth. Another one is when you get an x-ray back from an ortho or a doctor, bone on bone is often overused. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of times where knees and hips are in pretty bad shape and do need some sort of replacement. But I would say for the most part, it is overused. I've seen this multiple times with my own dad, going to ortho appointments with him where they put the x-ray up and they say your knee is in all this bad shape. And he is in pretty decent pain, but within 1 or 2 months, it seems like the pain all goes away. But his knee is the exact same. And so going back to the whole causation correlation type of conversation, we'll get into that. And I believe there was 2 more. One of them was whether or not sodium is directly related to high blood pressure, and if that is ultimately the culprit. Thank you for the submitted question on that. And I'm going to buy myself about 10 more seconds of time while I think to see if deadlifting. This was the last one. Deadlifting and whether or not that is good or bad for your back, whether or not it causes back issues, and whether or not you should use it to actually strengthen your back. So let's get into it. Let's go back to the first one, running. Running, I think, is something that has always been bought into as something to speed up the breakdown of your tissues and joints. That is kind of the way it's been viewed by the mass, like the general public. That is very much not true. There's an old saying, I want to say it was Teddy Roosevelt. My boss uses it quite often. He said, my boss quotes Teddy Roosevelt here. So Teddy Roosevelt, I believe it was him. He said, I would rather wear out than rust out. Meaning he would rather use his body until it stops working as opposed to sitting and resting until it rusts out. And I'm a huge believer of that. You see, your body does this really cool thing. It follows Wolff's law, meaning it adapts to the forces placed upon it. And that goes both directions. The more you sit and do nothing and do less activity, the more your body gets adapted to sit and do nothing and do less activity. Meaning it will start getting rid of muscle. It'll start accumulating fat. It'll start getting rid of bone density. It'll start letting tissues fall weak. That is what happens when you do less and less and you live a more sedentary lifestyle. The more you move, the more you work it out, especially when following a program well, and a good program, whether it be for running, strength training, a mix of both, Pilates, yoga, whatever it may be. These movements are reminding your body that they need to hold on to all of the things that make them strong. They need to hold on to muscle. Your body needs to hold on to that muscle. Your body needs to keep your bones strong. Your body needs to keep regenerating the meniscus and regenerating the tendons and the ligaments and keeping them strong. It's a constant fight. It's a constant battle. It's constant work for your body. But the second you stop doing those activities, the body's like, okay, cool, we don't have to worry about this anymore. And it'll start letting those things kind of go weak ultimately. And so running in particular, we think we only have so many miles to put on our legs. And that is just simply not true. Now, if you are no hate here, but if you are a classic runner and that is all you do and you seem to overtrain, the dose goes back to being in the poison, right? If you never strength train and teach your muscles to be strong, you just run with them, you're going to have problems. If you're also a weightlifter who never does cardio, you're going to have problems. Our bodies are also made to be good at a little bit of everything. And it ultimately still depends on what do you like to do, right? Like what makes you happy. But running is something that is not simply just bad for your knees. And I'm going to finish this topic with this. There was a study done that they found that osteoarthritis, which is ultimately what everybody's worried about getting and worried about having in their knees, when they hear like, oh, my knees are going to wear out, what you're ultimately most likely worried about is getting osteoarthritis and dealing with the pain and the effects of osteoarthritis. They've actually found that there's a higher correlation and a higher link of osteoarthritis in the lower body joints when you are living a sedentary lifestyle. So there's actually less osteoarthritis taking place in the knees and hips when you are a fit and active person, and there's more osteoarthritis in the people who are living a more sedentary lifestyle. So you should probably actually get out and go run. Now, final caveat, if it hurts to do, call me. Ultimately, find a physical therapist who can help you go through a proper evaluation and identify why you are having pain. And if there is some sort of imaging indicated, an x-ray, an MRI, a CT scan, and we need to know more, we can simply just refer you on to that. But if you want the quickest assessment, the most in-depth assessment, and the quickest results, you need to go to a physical therapist to help you get back to that activity that you want to do, whether it be running or anything else. Next one, excuse me. Let's go on to the deadlifting one. There is a physical therapy continuing ed body, group, who they have this phrase that they say, what hurt you is what will heal you. And I really enjoy that in a lot of different ways, because the stress that you were under during an injury means that you did something too much, or your body wasn't well equipped, your body wasn't recovered enough, or your body was running out of juice or energy. And so that's kind of what left you susceptible to that injury. And so deadlifting, for example, first of all, when it comes to deadlifting is a fantastic movement to strengthen grip, to teach how to hold tension throughout the arms and upper body. It's a great way to strengthen and learn stabilization of the low back. And then finally, it is a fantastic exercise to strengthen the posterior chain. Posterior means backside of the body. The chain is a link of muscles going kind of up and down. So the posterior chain would be your lats, your low back muscles, your butt cheek muscles, your hamstrings, and so on, kind of up and down. A lot of people can be scared of deadlifts because they've heard things or seen things, or they know someone who got hurt doing them. But the thing is every time you pick something up off the ground, you are deadlifting. You're already doing the movement. And sometimes you may be picking up something fairly heavy, a child in a car seat, groceries, a bag of mulch, any other object, honestly, off the ground. You're already deadlifting. So we might as well put you in a gym environment and teach you how to do it appropriately, and then gradually help you build strength and capacity to handle heavier and heavier loads, or a medium load for repetition. That is ultimately what's going to help truly carry over to your life. And to answer the questions and thoughts about that person you knew that blew out their back or that hurt themselves doing deadlift, most of the time they were either going too much too fast. They've never really learned how to appropriately lift that weight, but they're sort of strong enough to pick up something heavy. And so again, too much too fast. Or they weren't properly recovered and listening to their body and kind of feeling that hey, my low back is really starting to fatigue here. I'm going to push it anyway. And that's usually when the injury comes on. That catches most of the reasons people hurt themselves during a deadlift or get hurt during a deadlift. The final small percentage of people, I think, honestly, shit happens. There's people who are walking out of a restaurant after they eat with their family and they step off a curb wrong, fracture their leg. And so do you be like, oh my gosh, I should never walk in this parking lot again. I should never step off a curb again. I should never wear these shoes again. Those thoughts may cross your mind, but you acknowledge they're a little bit blasphemous, if that's the correct word right now. Because ultimately it's no, sometimes shit just happens. You weren't paying attention. You stepped on a rock. When you're deadlifting, you relaxed and didn't hold the tension. Sometimes there's markers and indicators that something's going to go wrong, and sometimes there's just simply not. And I'll be honest, I would rather hurt myself deadlifting 350 pounds as opposed to hurting myself stepping off a curb wrong. One of them sounds a little bit cooler, and one of them is also during a process of building good strength. Not everybody needs to lift that amount of weight, but you should be doing some sort of deadlifting to strengthen the low back. To finish this out, if you're unable to do it or you don't know how to do it, you should get with a personal trainer that you truly trust, or come to me or another physical therapist, and we will teach you the true mechanics of how to deadlift. And then you can start doing a lot of this stuff on your own to strengthen the hips and the low back. Next one, knees going over your toes. I can answer this entire thing with one study that was done. They took a group of people, they had them do squats. Half of them did squats with a board going perpendicular to the ground, straight up and down at the end of their toes. And so there was a board at the end of their toes going straight up, and when they squatted, their knees could not pass their toes even if they wanted to. The other group squatted normal, and they let their knees pass the toes. Ultimately, the knees going enough forward, which allowed their butt to go down and then allowed them to remain a little bit more upright in the squat. Here's the crazy stat. When you squat and prevent your knees from passing your toes in the squat, the stress on the knees go down by 22%, which, yes, reduces the stress on your knees. Cool. But also remember, you're squatting to put stress on your knees to teach them to be stronger. However, it increases the stress and pressure on your hips and low back by 1,070%. That is a horrible trade. You're saving your knees by 22%. Meanwhile, you're overloading your hips and low back by 1,070%. There's a time and a place for that kind of squat, but it is not with the load that you may be using during that squat. So please let your knees pass your toes when you squat, especially if you have the ankle mobility to allow it. If you cannot do that, you're like, dude, I'm trying, but every time I do it, it hurts my knees so bad. That tells me that you don't have the strength and capacity or the flexibility in your knees to do the movement. And so you need someone to evaluate that, assess it, and give you a good plan on how to ultimately strengthen it and move forward. You need gradual progressive overload, exposing your knee to that position, and you will get there. I promise you. You just have to be patient and disciplined and maybe have a guide along the way, a physical therapist. That is all I'm going to say on the knees over toes. Moving on to disc degeneration. So every time someone comes in with an MRI, I immediately tell them, cool, I'm probably going to find some sort of osteoarthritis or disc degeneration within your back. And they're like, how did you know? That was my diagnosis. Disc degeneration syndrome, or disc degeneration disease, I think is what they call it. That is just ultimately telling me that you have used your back at some point in time in your life. You would not expect to open a 1980s muscle car unless it's been completely rebuilt. You would not expect it to open the hood and see nothing wrong, no dust, no rip, no tears, no fade of the paint. You would not expect that. But guess what? It functions perfectly fine. Probably better than today's cars, to be honest. Shout out to everybody over like 30. But ultimately, we expect the back to look used. Is that correlative or causative of your pain? Most likely not, especially when we start palpating around and asking where your pain specifically is. The majority of the time, it is not along the spine, and it's not coming from your specific spine. They've done MRIs on a group of people between the ages of 20 and 80. They categorize them by decade of life. So the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, all the way up to 80. And they have found that even at 20 years old or in the decade of their 20s, there's a 37% chance, again, 37%, so over 1 in 3, had disc degeneration with 0 symptoms taking place. Keep that in mind. Then you get up to the ages of 60, and I'm pretty sure it's north of 80% chance that you have disc degeneration. Again, none of the people in the study had pain or symptoms. So the things are already there. The symptoms the signs are there. The images are there. And whenever you have pain, then they're like, oh my gosh, this thing that's been there all along is the reason for your pain. And it's like, no, it's probably not. It's most likely a muscular response and some sort of muscular spasm, weakness, imbalance. So everybody probably has disc degeneration. Please don't freak out if that becomes you one day when you get your MRI back. Okay. I am much more worried about your strength, function, and range of motion and ability to move. And that's where I think you should ultimately put more merit in assessment and a little bit less on the imaging. Moving forward, on to the next one. Oh, and if you have specific questions, yes, reach out to a physical therapist or reach out to me on this. Also, if any of these have resonated with you and you've had these conversations with your friends or family members, just go ahead and shoot them over this podcast. Just be like, hey, this guy I know and I kind of like, hopefully, talked about this actually, and I would like for you to listen to it. And there's probably timestamps down below. And so if you want to say, hey, listen to this, and if you want to skip through all the other stuff and just go straight to the disc part or to the knee part or to the running part, go ahead and just send them the timestamps. They start at 6 minutes and 32 seconds or whatever it is. 1 second. Okay. Just in case you're wondering why you may hear some things moving around. I'm actually currently at Sweat House in Wichita, Kansas, and I'm sitting in the sauna. So if you want to watch this on YouTube, you can watch me just dump sweat while recording this. So hopefully the audio all comes out nice and fine. Speaking of sweating, the next one we're going to talk about is sodium, and the idea that sodium is the cause or a big issue with blood pressure. There was a study done. I'm not going to remember the specifics, so I'm going to talk about this very lightly and make no direct claims. But there was a study done a while back when they noticed a higher, oh, this was a long time ago, and they noticed a higher intake of sodium seemed to be correlated with higher blood pressure. Come to find out that's not a direct cause either. And when you're doing stuff like what I'm doing, sitting in a sauna for 20, 30 minutes, you are dumping sweat. And what is sweat? It's essentially salt water. So I am losing water right now, along with losing sodium, magnesium, potassium, and calcium, a bunch of different electrolytes. We need to replenish those electrolytes via our diet, right? So you can take some sort of salt supplement, something like Element or Relight. I like Relight better. If you don't want to take that stuff, don't. You're totally fine probably. But if you want to supplement to make sure you're getting enough salt, you can. Most of the studies that talk about blood pressure and correlation with sodium say that we need less than 2,000 milligrams a day, which is less than 2 grams. Most of the studies done by the electrolyte companies, yes, they do have an interest in selling it, but they also believe they're selling you a solution, which I also agree with, say that you can intake upwards of 4,000 to 6,000 milligrams, specifically and especially if you are an athlete or someone who is working out a lot and sweating a lot. Because when you have a high amount of electrolytes in your body, sodium and all the others, you are probably going to either pee out the excess or urinate out the excess, or you are going to sweat it out. And if you have a low amount of electrolytes, but yet you're still drinking a ton of water without electrolytes, you can still get dehydrated and you can still feel the effects of an electrolyte imbalance. Now, I would say overall, I'm still a huge believer of when it comes to supplementation, if you don't have symptoms, you're probably fine. You probably don't need to worry about it, whether it be electrolytes, different vitamins, and things like that. If you're noticing some supplements and or you get a blood test done by a doctor, a medical doctor, or a DO, and they say, wow, your sodium is extremely low, or your B vitamin is low, your vitamin D, your calcium, your whatever is low, that's when I would say that's a good idea to go supplement. Of course, listen to the doctor. However, just willy-nilly taking a bunch of supplements because you heard some things, that can get you into trouble in regards of potentially if you were in the norm and you take a bunch of supplements, now you're going over, now you're going to have like essentially too much of that in your body and the symptoms associated with it. So just keep in mind that it may be worth your time to get a test done to verify that you actually need that supplement. Coming back to the sodium, I'm so sorry. You're most likely fine consuming sodium. It doesn't need to be demonized. And if anything, if you're an athlete who is sweating a lot and working out a lot, you actually probably need more sodium in general, especially right before and or after your time of sweating or your time of working out. I think you can lose over 1,000 milligrams of sodium per hour of sweating. And so just keep that in mind. Like right now, I'm currently drinking an electrolyte drink that I drink every morning, and it's got about 500 to 600 milligrams of total electrolytes, sodium, magnesium, potassium, and calcium. And those are in like ions and stuff, so that they can absorb via water, all that jazz. Anyway, sodium is not the devil that a lot of things want you to think it is. If you have specific issues, kidney issues, or you already have blood pressure issues, I would definitely say consult with your doctor 100% and ask them. And if you want, be bold. Ask them for the data to back it up. Ask them for the research to verify that. Ultimately, please don't just like go start downing 50 elements a day. Downing 50 elements a day, having no idea what you're doing, because yes, you can actually cause some issues because electrolytes ultimately help run your muscles. Your heart is a muscle, and if you have too much electrolytes all at once, it can throw the body off and you can get into trouble. So be smart with it, follow the directions, consult with a medical provider if you need to. I feel like there was one more that I wanted to get to. We talked about the discs and we talked about disc degeneration. We talked about deadlifting. We talked about running. We talked about knees over toes. We talked about sodium. If you're listening to this and you have that one in your brain, you're like, God, he never got to this. And you're sitting in your car or sitting wherever you are and you're listening and you're angry that I never got to that. I am going to pre-apologize. Well, and then currently apologize that I cannot remember what that last one is ultimately. And my guide is on my phone, which is currently recording this podcast. We're going to leave it there, I believe. I hope you have a great rest of the day. I hope you help share this podcast just with the people who really want and need to hear it. One of my favorite terms that we use in clinic is an expert lives a mile away. You have probably been telling this friend or family member so many times what is going on and why they need to change their life in whatever way. But sometimes they need someone other than that loving friend or family member to tell them. Maybe this podcast is that answer. Okay. So you can go ahead and just hit copy on the bottom of this podcast, text it to him and say, hey, this guy named Clayton, he's kind of cool. I like him. I trust what he says. Please listen. And if you like it, text back and ask any questions you have. Okay. That'll be very helpful for me. Hopefully it's helpful for you. And ultimately my mission is to help more people get answers from the medical system. Generally, I think that's a physical therapist in regards to the topics that I talk about. Also, next week I will be recording a podcast with a girl named Anna Woods. She's going to bring so much great knowledge. You should be very excited about it. If you're listening to this, not when it initially drops, the episode that comes after this one is going to be super killer for you guys. Currently at Sweat House, if you ever want to try this place out, Dr. Dir 10, so DRDIR 10 will get you $10 off your first session. That is not a paid advertisement or anything, just gets you some stuff. Okay. Try it out if you'd like. If you also just have a sauna on your own, don't worry about it. Ultimately, just sauna yourself. I've done cold plunges in my own bathtub, just really cold water. Trust me, that stuff gets pretty dang cold, especially as it comes to wintertime. If you have any questions, please drop them down below. If you have any topic requests, there is a link down below that you can submit that there. And if there's a guest that you think I should have on, please help me get connected to them and we will bring them on ultimately. Okay. I hope today you learned a little bit more how to heal without harm and we were able to bust some myths for you. Other than that, enjoy the rest of the day and please share this. Oh, share it on your Instagram or Facebook story. I will share it back. Thank you so much for your support. We'll see you guys.